So I need to start off with a bit of an apology because this video should have come out probably a week and a half ago after the game released, but I will explain why this video is so late when you get into the cons section of the review. There is a specific section called Ubisoft Connect, so if you want to see what's up there, timestamps down below, you can check that out. This review is going to be in my format that I normally do, which is the good, the bad, and the in-between. If you want to see each section individually, timestamps down below. Assassin's Creed 4 Resynched is a remake / remaster of AC4 Black Flag. I'm not going to call it AC4 Black Flag Resynched, it's too long. I'll just call it Resynched for the sake of the video. Basically, there is a remaster of the original game with some changes and added content. So just to let everybody know right off the bat before we get into this game is not a 100% faithful recreation of the original Black Flag. And if you want to play the original, it is still available on Steam. You can absolutely go and get that and play it. It's a great time. I played it last year. It still holds up. I will be doing some comparisons to the older game, talking about things that changed, what I like and dislike, that kind of thing. But if you are a 100% purist, you are not going to like this game. However, if you don't care that some things have been changed, then you will probably like this game. Just to give a TLDR of the rest of the video, the game is really good. It is still fairly faithful to the old game, and it is still a fun time in the Caribbean with pirates and the golden age of piracy. With that being said, let's get into the good, the bad, and the in-between of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Resynched. There we go, full title. Let's start off with...
It's not about need, Caroline. I want food that don't make me sick. I want walls that hold back the wind. I want a decent life.
Let's talk about performance. We'll just get this one out of the way. For me, performance was mostly very good. This is the type of game where I think frame gen and DLSS really do shine because it is a single player game that does have some timing elements to it. But when I'm playing on a controller on this type of game, this is not a thing where I really notice input delay and stuff like that frame gen can add in. My specs are an RTX 4070 with an i7 13700K, and I have 64 gigs of RAM. For me, that stuff didn't bother me. If you're more sensitive to that, then you can change it or whatever. However, I will say that however they are implementing their DLSS, I thought it was actually really good because there's a lot of foliage in this game, and one of the biggest problems with DLSS in the past is that it adds in this sort of after effect, shimmering effect to things like foliage or birds, stuff like that. And what I've noticed is that wasn't really a thing in this game, and I only ever noticed it once on birds while I was sailing, and you could see like black dots in the distance, and they would sometimes have a little trail behind them from the DLSS. Everything else was great. I don't know if that's just a new update to DLSS that has fixed a lot of that stuff, or it's Ubisoft's implementation of it. Either way, it was really well done. The biggest thing about this game that I would put in the good column is just the vibes, baby. Black Flag is my favorite Assassin's Creed game because I love the golden age of piracy, that era. Characters like Blackbeard and Bonny, who's a personal favorite, Charles Vane and Mary Read and some of those characters. I really like this era, and so to have a game set in it, I'm all for it. And the resynced version keeps a lot of that vibe, and it's just still the same. I mean, it's basically the same but more. So you got more sea shanties, you've got a few more things to do on the open sea, stuff like that, where they've really just enhanced what was already there in a lot of ways. And they've also added things that I don't like in terms of extra content. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So overall, the vibes are great. The music's really good, all that stuff. Graphically, I think this game is beautiful. I think it looks really, really good. And there are some set piece moments where the camera sometimes will linger. Maybe it's like lingering on a person's face, and sometimes the lighting and stuff, it just looks really good. I saw a post talking about, oh, there's like a yellow filter on the game and you can remove it with this mod. I don't know. I didn't really see that. It didn't really bother me all that much. And honestly, I thought it just looked great. If I had to nitpick, there are times where the camera will zoom in on the mortar or on the cannons, especially when you've fought a ship and you want to sink it or whatever. And the textures for the cannons and the mortars look particularly low res. That's the only time I'll really say that. Also, in the ending final cutscene where they are at the opera play, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've played the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. No, not trying to spoil anything. That cutscene came off and it looked like 2013 pre-rendered, and as the camera started to zoom in, it was almost this effect of, the best way I can describe it is like, you know when you play a game and you see that sort of LOD, the loading from the distance, like the level of detail loading from a distance, you can see like a ring around your character where you can see like grass and all that stuff, but after that it's just really flat, and every time you move you can see that stuff slowly load in. It had that effect in the cutscene where it seemed to be super low res, but as the camera came in, it's almost as if it then upgraded to the current graphics. It was really strange. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it was really kind of cool to see the difference if that's what they were going for. I don't know, maybe it was just on my machine, but it was really interesting. A little quality of life thing that they added is a new auto follow feature. I really enjoyed this because in the original game, there were a lot of times where you had to follow somebody from one place to another on foot, and they didn't do a very good job of making Edward walk the same speed as those people. So you would either be too slow or too fast. And so you were constantly like moving forward ahead and waiting for them to catch up and stuff like that. But they added in this auto follow feature where you can stand behind the person and just follow them at their pace. You can stop following at any time to do whatever you want. It's just a nice little quality of life thing. There are now way more things to do in this game. There have been new characters that have been introduced with their own side stories. They are officers. And also, one thing I'm thinking of in particular is there is a new character that gives out the naval missions now. And this character will introduce you to the naval missions and then tell you where you can find the other ones. And all of those people basically work for this guy when they give you these missions. And he has his own storyline and all that stuff. They've also added in new collectibles and stuff like that. So there's a lot more stuff to find now and to collect for your 100% rating. So I put stealth in my good section, even though it probably should be more close to the in-between. I put it here because it's largely unchanged from the main game, with the exception of that they added in the ability to crouch anywhere. In the original game, the only way you could like crouch down and hide was if you were in stalking like high grass zones. Your character would automatically do that. Here you can do it whenever. Now that does mean that if you go into those zones, you have to manually hide and crouch. It doesn't do it automatically anymore. So there's kind of a trade-off there in terms of, do I like it, do I not? But overall, it's still a solid stealth system. It's not like the most insane detailed. It's Ubisoft stealth, let's remember that. But it's largely unchanged and it's pretty good. The voice acting is incredibly good. It is still just as good as it was because most of the voice acting is from the original game, just they've remastered the audio, I think, and they have brought in the original actors again to do the new content that they've added in. And all of it is pretty darn good overall. It is really well done. The writing is still very good in terms of the original story. It still holds up. They did add in some new scenes to sort of expand on original stuff. I'm thinking in particular, they added in a few extra scenes with Edward and his wife Caroline to shape their relationship and their troubles a little bit more. The new stuff with the new characters, the stories for the new characters, we'll talk about here in a little bit. My level of enjoyment may not be the same as some other people. Ship combat is still very, very well done, if not even better than the original game. It is essentially the same, but with some added extra utility. So it's largely unchanged. However, they've added in alternative fire modes for your side cannons, your mortar, and your chase cannons. And so the way it works now is if you are aiming, you get to hit Y if you're playing on an Xbox controller, which I was, and it will swap to an alternate firing mode. So for broadsides, instead of just shooting regular cannonballs, you can flip to flaming cannonballs. And flaming cannonballs were in the original game, but they were only shot if you shot broadsides without aiming first. That still exists, so you can still do that, but now you can get the flaming cannonballs while also aiming, so you can still do that if you want to. And the other things are changed too as you unlock them and stuff like that. So that kind of thing is really the only change to it. They did get rid of ship stealth. So in the original game, there were whole sections, because they also removed the mini map. There were whole sections in the original game where you had to use your ship to sneak into different areas, and enemy ships would have a stealth outline around them and also like a cone of vision, and you would have to like hide from those ships. That's not in the game anymore, so there is no ship stealth. Personally, I'm okay with that. Purists may hate that, so just putting that out there. The story itself, the overall Edward story, is mostly the same. There are some differences here, especially towards the later portion of the game. They have added in some alternative ways to complete some of those missions. So they've really leaned away from complete mission failure if you don't do exactly what they want you to do. In the original game, basically, you had to do precisely exactly what the game wanted you to do. And if you didn't, you would just desynchronize and have to restart that section again. Here, they've gotten rid of that. They're really pulling away from a lot of the Animus Abstergo stuff, it seems, and they should, by the way. But this is more open world game where if you mess up something, you don't fail. The enemies just react in a different way, and you have to complete those missions in a different way. Now, of course, if you die at any point, then you'll desynchronize, sure, and you'll have to restart at a checkpoint, but that's death, and that's completely different. For instance, the tailing missions are different now. So if you are tailing somebody to listen in on them, no longer do you have to keep them in a certain line of sight. In the original game, you would tail somebody and you would have to hide from them if they were looking for you. If they got out of your sight, a countdown timer would appear until you could see them again, and then you could, resume or whatever. But here, if they catch you, then they'll run away and you'll have to get your information a different way and complete the mission in a completely different manner than just tailing them. I'll give you another example. One of the changes that they made was to the mission where you get the diving bell. So the diving bell is, in the original game, only available if you buy it. But here they made it to where you can actually go and get one for free if you go and find a pirate camp and defeat the pirates, and then you can just acquire it for free. So they've given some alternate strategies to different missions. This doesn't happen all the time, but only in some missions. Another addition to the story that I like, personal favorite, is that Bonny plays a much larger role in the story once you get near the end.
Dear lady, what do they call you?
Anne when they're sober, a jilt when they're sauced, but never lady.
Well, good Leanne,
Once she finally joins your crew, she actually becomes a lot more active and kind of berates you a lot more because Edward is still being an idiot and some other stuff, but she does play a bit more of a role later on, and I like Bonny, so I don't have an issue with that personally. Once again, if you don't like Anne or you're a purist, you're not gonna like this. And you know what else we're not gonna like? Everything that's in...
You've stepped up a rung. So, any luck finding medicines here?
Nothing round this spot, sadly. But there's a few wrecks yonder that ain't been scoured by nothing but crabs and coral.
I'll have a look.
So we'll start off with something that got fixed, but it's still bad. At launch, the game limited the cutscenes to 30 FPS. I don't know why. I don't really understand what their thought process behind it was. They did patch that out, so that's fixed. So there was also an FPS limitation on the mansion that you get on Grand Inagua. You can place some of your collectibles on different shelves and stuff. And anytime I would go into that menu to do the shelf and look around at what I had, it would limit my FPS to 60 for some reason. I think that's also been patched by now, but it was a thing. Something that's a little more important is combat. The original game's combat also wasn't very good. It was very simple, and it had quite a few issues in my opinion, largely around the targeting system and how it chose who you would attack and attack next. It also had issues where you would try to double assassinate someone, but then for whatever reason, you would look a little maybe too far to the left or to the right, and all of a sudden you're only doing a single assassination. It was a very annoying thing. Combat, in my opinion, is actually worse in this game because it's even easier in this game. In the original game, there were certain ways you had to kill enemies, but in this game, almost every enemy can be defeated just by standing still and waiting for them to attack you first, and then you do a perfect parry and then counterattack them, which instantly kills them. And then from there, you can chain up to, depending on what swords you have, a certain number of chain takedown kills. So if you have, let's say, 5 people surrounding you and you take down the first enemy by countering and instantly killing him, you can then kill 3 more people after that person almost immediately and instantly. Now, some enemies you cannot do that to, but what that means is you just wait for them to attack you and then you counterattack them and instantly kill them. You can't chain a takedown into them, but you can still do a takedown if you counter them specifically. The big brute guys with the axes, they cannot be chain takedown unless you have a very specific item that will let you do it, which then makes them infinitely easier. So with the big brute guys, you just dodge their axes and hit them with your sword until they're dead. There are a lot of different utility items you can use, but they are absolutely useless and only there if you're really interested in doing it. But functionally, you can beat every single person in this game just by perfect parrying and doing a takedown, even the bosses. And in fact, they've basically added in a poise or posture meter to enemies. It's a yellow bar over their health, and it will go down every time you do a perfect parry or you shoot them. And this is something that you will absolutely do in every single boss fight. I will add this in here as well because it's also a part of this. One of the missions and the boss fights really pissed me off. They give you all this freedom to do stuff, and then in some instances, they don't even reward you for it. So for instance, there is very late into the game, when you go to Principe, there is a section where you have to assassinate 2 different people at the same area. And they have set this up specifically so that these 2 guys will go along the same pathways and you can kill them pretty much at any point in time. And I think if I'd actually gone up behind them and used the hidden blade to kill them, then it might have killed them instantly. But what ended up happening was far worse. They go into a building where there is a gunpowder barrel right beside them, and I said, oh, I'll just blow it up and kill them instantly. But because this game hates me, I blow it up, and it only knocked them down to about 25% health remaining. And so instead of just instantly killing them and assassinating them, I then had to go into the actual boss fight, which kind of, in my opinion, takes away the fun of setting up the assassination. That's just my own personal thought. But in other boss battles, they're all basically the same thing. Wait for them to attack, do a perfect parry, knock down their poise meter by doing that, dodge red unblockable attacks, and then wait until you can get a takedown where you'll do a ton of damage. In my opinion, it wasn't nearly as fun. Okay, so for this next thing, I will say it is better, but I will not say that it is good. So the swimming sections, in particular, the diving bell sections. In the original game, the whole point of the diving bell is literally to give you more stuff to collect. It adds in sharks, it adds in underwater stealth, i.e., hiding in seaweed so the sharks can't see you. And the whole point is to go and get collectibles. And in the original game, the swimming mechanic was fucking terrible. That has been fixed in terms of the swimming mechanic. Everything else is still the same. Underwater stealth, the sharks, and it's all collectibles. That's the only reason you do it, right? You do it once for the story, and then after that, it's just for collectibles. The shark stealth mechanics suck even worse in this game. There were times where the shark would not even give me a notification that it could see me, and then I would just get attacked. There was a time where I was in hiding in a bush and the shark was swimming above me, and it just instantly attacked me, even though I was in full stealth. The shark will also sometimes attack you, even if it's far away and its notification bar has only filled up to the white meter and hasn't filled up the yellow one all the way. So I don't know if that's on purpose or if that just doesn't work properly. Even then, it still sucks because it's only there for collectibles. It is not fun, and while it is better because the swimming mechanics are good now, that's like giving me a cold turd sandwich versus a hot turd sandwich. One of those might be better, but I'm still eating a turd sandwich. And then of course, it wouldn't be a Ubisoft game without some form of bugs and glitches and issues. And I even had glitches in the same places that I had glitches in the original game. There is a spot in one of the towns where you are doing a mission for the Cuban lady assassin leader. It's one of the Templar hunt missions. And in the original game, I had a glitch where he literally just disappeared, and so did the ship. And I had to restart that part of the mission to get it to spawn. I had glitches in the same exact spot of this game. It was wild. I think what happened was he gets on his ship, and then when I got on my ship to chase him down, the camera bugged out and I couldn't see where I was shooting my cannons. I had to restart the whole thing and it bugged again. I think I have the footage. I hope I still do. We'll put it in the background. I'll play it for you. All right. This one's a bit contentious for people, but microtransactions. You gotta love it. There are microtransactions and cosmetics in this game that total for more than the cost of the base game. Now, I will say most of these are just cosmetic. However, some of them are actually resource packs. So you'll buy them and they will give you money plus like wood, cotton, wool, cloth, those sorts of resources. It's up to you whether you want to buy them or not. I find them to be obnoxious personally, so to each their own. And something that is absolutely obnoxious are the battle passes that are in the game. There are 7 battle passes in total that you can work your way through to unlock rewards. Now, 3 of those are for AC Resynched, and 4 of them, I believe, are for Shadows. However, because the Animus is now a hub for all of the different games, at least when you play Shadows and Resynched, I believe you now have daily missions you can do. It might be 3 or 4 of them. They put in these daily missions where you go and find corrupted Animus things and you complete those missions. These new missions give you a currency that are like dark Animus tokens or something that every time you finish a mission, it will level up your battle pass that you have selected by 1 level. The passes are not a timed exclusive or anything. They will not expire, but why even have them? Because they've put in these daily mechanics to get people to come back every single day to unlock all this stuff. On top of that, most of the items that you will unlock in those passes are not even things that you can use in Resynched. Most of the items that you will unlock are agnostic to the game. They are Animus data shards, which will give you a piece of lore from the real world Abstergo thing going on. Some of those are what are called Animus keys, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then I think in total, across 60 levels, maybe 50, 55 levels of battle passes that are in Resynched, I want to say maybe a total of 10 of those things are actually items or cosmetics that are specifically usable in the game. That dark Animus currency is now one of 3 different things that the Animus has in the game now. You have the dark Animus currency. Those are your dailies that unlock the rewards for the passes. You have Animus keys. So they got rid of the Animus fragments from the original game. Those fragments would then give you things like God mode, basically, right? Or unlimited ammo, stuff like that. They got rid of those. They then put in a gold currency, which are keys, because there is now a store for those keys as the currency. So they've added in things like Altair's outfit, Ezio's outfit, Connor's outfit, some swords, and a few other things that you can then use those keys to buy those items with. And those items can be used in Resynched. Now, the keys are unlocked by finding them all over the world. They are free in the game itself. And they're also unlocked through the battle pass, or they're unlocked by completing the different synchronization challenges throughout the game. Those are all like progress related. Then the third thing are the Animus data shards, and I talked about those a minute ago, where they basically just unlock different things related to the real world Abstergo conflict. And speaking of which, one of the worst parts about this game is the Abstergo storyline. So in the original game, we had just finished reeling from the death of Desmond and everything that included. And in the original game's Abstergo storyline, you were walking around Abstergo in first person as an employee of the company, and what you were doing was then hacking consoles, and there was a whole storyline that they were doing to set up the next big modern day story arc. However, in Resynched, none of that stuff exists. All of that stuff is gone. So what they have done is seemingly continued, or they are finishing or doing something with what little Animus storyline there was from Shadows. There are 4 Animus missions in this game that you can do after you get to certain parts of the game, and there is essentially a little storyline there, and it's not great. There's a boss fight. They give you a set of pretty cool swords once you beat it, but I really think that the Abstergo stuff has just lost the plot ever since Desmond died. A lot of it seemingly feels like kind of how Marvel is after Endgame, where they're kind of just spinning their wheels trying to find traction on a new storyline, and I don't know where they're going with it or what they're really doing, and I never really have. So for me, this didn't do anything for me, and I wish that if they were going to do a modern day storyline, they need to do something more than whatever they've been doing here. So this is awful. And now finally, why this video took so long to make. Ubisoft Connect. So Ubisoft Connect is their own store page on PC that's similar to something like Steam, right? Or the EA app or whatever. So I bought the game through Steam, and when you turn it on, it goes through the Ubisoft app, I think, to authenticate stuff and whatever. Now, I am logged in to the Ubisoft app, and on one of the days, my internet went out. I got a hold of my ISP. They could not get a tech to me for 6 days. So I tried to play the game in offline mode. I tried to go through Steam's offline mode. Ubisoft Connect has an offline mode, but it did not work for me. It turns out that Ubisoft's offline mode has some very specific requirements. One of those requirements involves you have to be signed in order to go offline, which is stupid because I can't sign in because I can't do anything to go offline, but Steam would let me. So even though I had already been logged in previously and I had been playing Assassin's Creed, AC4 Original, The Division 2, The Division 1. I've been playing quite a few Ubisoft games recently, up until the day my internet went out, mind you. I still could not play Resynced in offline mode. Why? Because every single time I would click play offline on the Ubisoft Connect app, it would then ask me to log in, which I couldn't do. So that's why the video is taking so long. Fuck you, Ubisoft. So I got stuck somewhere between Steam and Ubisoft, just like most of these next opinions got stuck.
He's Crookfoot.
Wait! Did he have the key?
Huh? Searching him was your duty.
My duty?
Go up to the villa and ask the boss yourself.
If the key is lost, you can just pin it on me.
Boss said I had the hard business, didn't he? Subdue one of our own, announce his crimes, and then throw him to Lucia. You had to collect his effects, his gun, his boots, his keys.
Oh, God.
It's going to be a hot take, and I think a lot of people will probably have some issues with me saying this, but AC4 Originals Parkour was pretty good. It was okay, right? It wasn't, in my opinion, amazing. It had a lot of issues. However, I kind of liked the parkour system in this game a little better than the original game, specifically with the advanced parkour setting turned on. Now, I say this because when I played AC4 last year, I found that the parkour mechanics could be kind of finicky. For the most part, they were pretty good, unless you needed to do something very, very precise. Now I'm going to lump climbing, free running, parkour all into like controls, just one category here. And overall, I think that Resynched was a bit smoother in terms of how it played. However, like I said, that was with advanced parkour turned on, because when I had the simplified parkour going, I had some of the same issues that I had with the original game. There are sections in Resynched where Edward will start climbing something and then he will just not move. And it's because unless you are in a very specific spot, sometimes Edward cannot figure out where he needs to go next. Now that specific spot might be 1 inch to the left or right of where you currently are before he will move again. And I had that happen a lot in the original game, and it also happened a lot here in the newer game. There were a lot of times where Edward would just simply not climb natural structures like rocks, things like that. Even though he sometimes has like a 45-foot vertical leap, he can't climb over a 5-foot tall rock. Stuff like that got really annoying. And there were also issues with that in the original game too. There was a really big pet peeve of mine in the original game where if you had a building that had a ladder up against it and it had a frame going along the side of the building, like a support beam that was horizontal, if you would jump from an elevated position, so from one building to the next, or like from a shed or a fence to the next, and you tried to jump from that thing to the ladder, Edward would never jump to the ladder. He would always jump to the left or to the right and grab onto that frame, and then you would have to shimmy over to the ladder. Now, in the new game, I can report that he actually jumps onto the ladder most of the time. Sometimes the old habits come in, but he will mostly jump to the ladder. And in some places, the world has been changed a little bit, and those ladders are no longer there. They're actually gone, and they've changed it a little bit, which I think is kind of interesting. When I did my retrospective of the original game on my other channel, I filmed myself jumping onto a ladder where this issue would happen. I did it 10 plus times, and every single time Edward would jump to the side of the ladder and not onto it. Here, not the case. The new cutscenes with Edward and his wife. So there are, I believe, 2 new cutscenes with Edward and Caroline, and the only reason that I'm unsure how I feel about these is that I believe that the original game's cutscenes did a good enough job of explaining what had happened between Edward and Caroline that I didn't really need much more of a look into their life, that I felt it warranted more cutscenes. But they added 2 more, and in my opinion, I don't know how I feel about them. They're well done. The writing's still pretty good. Just don't know if I like them. The officers I felt were kind of hit and miss. I really did not care for Lucy. She was not my favorite character by any means, but even when I got to the other 2 officers, their stories were okay. Like, all the stories are okay. And I feel like this is a situation where we could have had more time with these officers to really develop them more, but they're really only relegated to like a handful of missions. So for me, I kind of wanted to get to know like Padre or Deadman a little bit more when I got to them, but they kind of just move things along quickly so that way you can get them into your crew and use their abilities. While I don't dislike them, I kind of wanted more. So this next thing is a pet peeve of mine. It's not a major issue, but I did not like that in the subtitles, there were just random words that were capitalized for no reason. And I don't know why. And once I noticed it, I couldn't ignore it. And the problem was, it reminds me of that meme when somebody is trying to mock somebody online and they start capitalizing every other letter. And it's like, cast the anchor, me hearties. He'd be like, cast the anchor, me hearties. That's how I read it every single time. And it just got worse the entire time I saw it. The inventory has changed now as well. So you still upgrade your character and stuff like that, but they've added in trinkets now. So trinkets basically are 2 inventory slots where you equip a trinket, and each trinket has its own sort of ability of things that it does. So for me, the trinkets that I chose were I regain health every time I do a perfect parry, and Brutes, the big guy with the axes, you can now include them into chain takedowns and kill them in one shot if they are near you. What's annoying about this is that when you get the Mayan armor, the original reason the Mayan armor was so awesome was because it inherently deflected bullets. That is still a thing. However, they have divorced the Mayan armor from that trinket. You can only get that trinket once you unlock the Mayan armor, but it is not inherent to the Mayan armor. It's only inherent to the trinket. Now, me personally, I like the Mayan armor, but I feel like that should have been built into the armor anyway, no matter what, instead of it being its own separate trinket. Now, I will caveat that by saying that's a good thing as well, because if you don't want to wear the Mayan armor, but you still want that effect, you can absolutely do that because you can equip that as a trinket while wearing something else. But I went the entire game not really having to worry too much about getting shot to death. And so there's no reason and no way I would ever equip that trinket over the two that I had already chosen, because that didn't fit my play style. But if it would have been inbuilt into the Mayan armor by default, I would have loved that too. But that's just a personal gripe. It's kind of whatever. That's why it's in this section. And then the last thing is the fleet mechanics. So if you remember in the original game, once you unlock the fleet, you could send them all over the world and have them deliver cargo or do missions and stuff like that. And it would be on a timer, and then they would bring back rewards. That is still here. However, they have limited where the ships can go, and they have changed kind of the layout entirely. So now, instead of sending things to Boston or France or the North Africa or wherever, you can only send things to predetermined locations on the in-game map. So the Caribbean, where you play, is where the ships can go. And you need to have ships of all different types. Certain quests require certain ships to be done. They really want you to have the schooners, the frigates, brigs, and man-of-wars, and they really want you to have like a couple of each. But the missions are basically dumbed down to scouting out a warehouse. Warehouses are on a countdown timer of like an hour or two, and you can go and do them whenever to get resources. There's also lowering your threat level in a certain sector. There is trading, and then there's also some general like go and raid sort of things. And that's kind of what it boils down to, and you get rewards for doing different things, and you send your ships out, they take damage, you can repair them, and then you send them out again. Look, I didn't really like the fleet mechanic in the original game, and I don't like it here either, but it's not anything that you are required to interact with. But if you enjoyed the fleet mechanic in the original game, it's a similar system, but worse than the original game, in my opinion. But since I didn't really mess with this too much, I'm not calling it bad or good, it just exists. And with that being said, overall, I thought Black Flag Resynced was a fun time. I put about 60 hours into the game, which is 15 hours longer than I put into the original game. I did 99% completion rate. I think I have maybe 3 more legendary ships to do, and also 2 more treasure maps I need to find and unlock. I had a good time running around the Caribbean, hanging out with Anne Bonny. And with that being said, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like on it. If you made it this far, maybe you should subscribe. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. I've been BubbaTV24, and I am signing out.